Just when the world thought it had uncovered every chapter of Chadwick Boseman's extraordinary life, Denzel Washington stepped forward with a revelation so powerful, so emotional, that it stunned millions into silence. In one heartfelt moment, Washington opened a window into Chadwick's final days, a truth so painful and noble it sent shockwaves far beyond Hollywood. But to understand the weight of Denzel's words, we must travel back to the very beginning of Chadwick's journey. Long before global fame, before red carpets, before he became a symbol of strength for an entire generation, Chadwick Aaron Boseman was simply a boy growing up in the quiet, close-knit community of Anderson, South Carolina. Born on November 29, 1976, Chadwick entered a world shaped by family values, discipline, and the unspoken belief that every child carried a story worth telling. His parents, Carolyn and Leroy Boseman, were not wealthy, but they were rich in integrity. Carolyn, a nurse with a gentle but commanding presence, taught him compassion. Leroy, a factory worker with strong hands and a humble spirit, taught him perseverance. As the youngest of three boys, Chadwick learned early that family was his foundation. Their home wasn't lavish, but it overflowed with warmth, storytelling, and lessons disguised as everyday conversations. Books filled the shelves, histories of Black leaders, cultural studies, and biographies of people who shaped the world. Among them was one book that altered Chadwick's life forever, the autobiography of Malcolm X, a prized possession of his older brother. At just 12 years old, Chadwick opened it, and something awakened inside him. This wasn't light reading for a child. It was an initiation into the realities of race, power, and justice. The story of Malcolm X planted seeds of purpose that would guide Chadwick's life and define the roles he chose decades later. Chadwick wasn't just intelligent, he was gifted in ways people around him couldn't ignore. Whether it was sketching, painting, sculpting, or losing himself in a basketball game, he possessed a rare ability to express himself in multiple forms. His parents nurtured this creativity, never dismissing his artistic passions as hobbies. Yet the true turning point didn't come from a book or a ball. It came from watching his older brother Kevin, a dancer and performer who lit up the stage. Sitting beside his mother in dimly lit theaters, young Chadwick watched Kevin transform under the spotlight. The performances were more than entertainment, they were revelations. He saw how storytelling could stir hearts, shift perspectives, and connect souls. Something inside him whispered, "This is your path." High school was a balancing act: academics, sports, visual arts, and eventually the stage. But life would soon deliver a blow that reshaped his destiny. When a close friend was killed, Chadwick was shattered. Instead of retreating into silence, he turned to the one place that had always given him clarity: storytelling. He wrote Crossroads, a play inspired by the tragedy. Performing it didn't just help him grieve, it solidified a lifelong truth. Storytelling was his way of navigating the world and perhaps helping others navigate theirs. That calling carried him to Howard University, the mecca of Black excellence, where creativity thrived and potential burned bright. At Howard, Chadwick majored in directing, a choice that surprised some, but one that made perfect sense to him. He wanted to understand stories from every angle, to become not just an actor but a complete storyteller. Under the guidance of legendary mentor Felicia Rashad, Chadwick learned discipline, authenticity, and the responsibility that comes with portraying meaningful stories. Rashad recognized something extraordinary in him. So when an opportunity arose for Chadwick to attend a prestigious acting program at the British Academy of Dramatic Arts in Oxford, she encouraged him to apply. The only problem? The tuition was far beyond his reach. But destiny was already at work. Unbeknownst to Chadwick, Denzel Washington stepped in quietly, anonymously, covering the cost. That act of generosity would shape the rest of Chadwick's life and deepen the emotional weight of what Denzel would later reveal after Chadwick's passing. Oxford sharpened Chadwick's skill, expanded his worldview, and refined his vision of what storytelling could truly be. It wasn't just training, it was transformation. When Chadwick graduated from Howard and later completed his program in Oxford, he entered New York City, a place that didn't care about potential, dreams, or talent. New York was a battlefield. Here, Chadwick wasn't the promising star from Howard. He was one of thousands fighting for a sliver of recognition. Audition after audition ended with rejection. Casting directors wanted something he didn't quite match. When he did land roles, they were forgettable. A line here, a brief appearance there. Guest roles in Law and Order, Third Watch, and similar shows became stepping stones, though they felt more like survival jobs than victories. But Chadwick treated every small role with the seriousness of a lead performance. Each no sharpened him. Each minor part trained him. He wasn't waiting for success, he was preparing for it. He understood something most aspiring actors never learn. Greatness isn't built in the spotlight, it's forged in the shadows. What kept him going wasn't luck. It was a relentless inner fire, the same fire lit years ago by Malcolm X, by Kevin's performances, by tragedy, by Howard, by Oxford, by mentors who saw him clearly even before the world did. Slowly, opportunities grew. Casting directors began noticing the depth he carried into every scene, the conviction, the nuance, the honesty. He wasn't acting, he was channeling truth. Every setback, every struggle, every rejection was shaping him into the man who would one day become Jackie Robinson, Thurgood Marshall, James Brown, and finally, the King of Wakanda. But behind all the triumphs was a secret none of us knew, a silent battle only a handful of people were aware of. And when Chadwick's life drew to its final chapter, Denzel Washington stepped forward and told the world the truth, a truth that made every moment of Chadwick's journey even more profound. Chadwick Boseman was never just an actor. He was a storyteller in the purest sense, a creator whose soul lived between the lines of every script and the shadows of every stage. In New York, long before fame found him, the theater became his refuge, the one place where he could stretch his imagination without restraint. It was there, surrounded by dim stage lights and the smell of old wood, that Chadwick poured himself into writing and directing stories that felt like extensions of his own heartbeat. His early plays, including the bold and deeply introspective Hieroglyphic Graffiti, tackled themes most young playwrights were too afraid to touch: identity, culture, justice, survival. These were not just artistic choices, they were reflections of the world he knew, of the African American experience etched into the generations before him. Chadwick wasn't writing for applause, he was writing because the stories of his people demanded a voice, and he was determined to give them one. For him, theater was not a stepping stone to Hollywood, it was a sacred ground, a place where truth mattered more than spectacle, where characters spoke words that pierced the soul. Every night on stage, every script he rewrote at 2 a.m. was part of a mission bigger than himself. He wanted audiences to feel something real, something urgent, something impossible to ignore. But while the stage fed his spirit, paying bills required hustle. Chadwick continued grinding through television auditions, showing up for tiny roles that barely got his name into the credits. Yet he never complained. He understood that greatness often grows in the shadows, that every small role was sharpening him in ways he couldn't yet see. Then came 2008, the spark that would ignite everything. Chadwick was cast in The Express, a biographical drama about Ernie Davis, the first African American to win the Heisman Trophy. Chadwick stepped into the shoes of Floyd Little, another legendary player, and delivered a performance full of heart and sincerity. It wasn't the lead role, but it was a turning point. The moment Hollywood finally turned its head and whispered, "Who is that?" The Express gave him visibility, credibility, and the foothold he desperately needed. But Chadwick was too wise to believe any single role could guarantee him a place in an unpredictable industry. He treated it as a blessing, not a destination. A door had opened, but what he did next would determine how long it stayed open. Even with new opportunities forming on the horizon, Chadwick never abandoned his roots. The theater still called to him. Between auditions and filming, he returned to writing, producing, and performing plays. For him, the stage was a creative laboratory, a place where he could take risks that Hollywood wasn't ready for, explore characters no studio would greenlight, and tell the kind of stories that shaped him. These early years in New York were not setbacks, they were the foundation. Every rejection fueled his fire. Every minor role strengthened his resolve. Every night spent writing alone in cramped apartments added another layer to his craft. Chadwick Boseman was building something the world couldn't yet see, but one day would never forget. Years later, after relentless dedication and countless closed doors, Chadwick finally got the moment he had been preparing for his entire life. In 2013, he landed the role that would catapult him into a different stratosphere, Jackie Robinson in 42. Think they can say all they want. We just here to play ball. All this, it sets just a bunch of crackpots still fighting the Civil War. Well, hell, we already won that. That line wasn't just dialogue, it was a declaration. Chadwick approached Jackie Robinson with reverence, diving deeply into Robinson's mannerisms, courage, and the enormous weight he carried as the man who shattered baseball's color barrier. The film became both a critical and commercial triumph. Audiences felt Chadwick's performance in their bones. Hollywood felt it too. His portrayal wasn't imitation, it was resurrection. With 42, Chadwick proved he wasn't just a talented actor, he was a once-in-a-generation performer capable of channeling icons with emotional truth and unshakable dignity. And then, just 1 year later, he did it again. In 2014, Chadwick took on one of the most electrifying challenges of his career, James Brown in Get On Up. It hit hard. Playing the godfather of soul required extreme physicality, emotional range, and an understanding of Brown's almost mythic persona. Chadwick dove in head first, perfecting the footwork, the swagger, the explosive energy. He trained until his body ached, studied until dawn, and refused anything less than authenticity. The result? A performance so magnetic that viewers often forgot they were watching an actor at all. With James Brown, Chadwick showed Hollywood he wasn't just capable, he was unstoppable. 2 iconic roles within 2 years, 2 legends brought to life with breathtaking precision. By 2014, Chadwick Boseman was no longer merely a promising actor. He was a phenomenon, a storyteller whose dedication felt almost spiritual. Then came the role that would change cinematic history. When Marvel Studios began searching for an actor to bring T'Challa, the Black Panther, to life, they weren't just looking for a superhero. They needed someone who could embody leadership, nobility, cultural pride, and emotional gravity. Someone who could stand at the intersection of tradition and modernity, strength and vulnerability, heritage and heroism. There was only one name that fit: Chadwick Boseman. This casting wasn't just another Hollywood decision, it was a cultural milestone. The first Black-led film in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, a character who would become a global symbol of representation, identity, and pride. Marvel knew they needed someone whose presence commanded respect the moment he walked into a room. Chadwick understood the weight of this role. He knew T'Challa wasn't just for him, he was for generations of Black children who had never seen a superhero who looked like them. He carried that responsibility with humility and purpose. From the accent he created to the grounded strength he brought to the character, every choice Chadwick made was intentional. He wasn't playing a superhero, he was honoring a legacy. He recognized that Black Panther would spark conversations, shift perspectives, and become a cultural phenomenon unlike anything before it. And he was right. When Black Panther hit theaters, the world erupted. Critics praised it. Fans embraced it. Children saw themselves as kings and queens for the first time. And Chadwick stood at the center of it all, noble, graceful, and powerful, just like the character he embodied. When Black Panther premiered in 2018, it didn't just enter theaters, it exploded into a global sensation. The movie broke box office records with astonishing speed and captured the attention of millions around the world, but its true power went far beyond financial success. Black Panther became a cultural shift, a declaration, a celebration of something audiences had waited decades to see. Set in Wakanda, a fictional African nation untouched by colonization and fueled by advanced technology, the film reimagined Africa in a way mainstream media had never dared to. It wasn't a continent portrayed through stereotypes, but a homeland of brilliance, dignity, and innovation. Black Panther offered a bold vision of African greatness, embodied by a leader who was king, warrior, and superhero all at once. For countless viewers, it was the first time African culture was displayed with pride on such a massive scale. The characters were not victims, not side characters. They were powerful, intelligent, and in control of their own destiny. Black Panther didn't just entertain, it empowered. It ignited global pride among African and African American audiences and sparked a worldwide appreciation for African heritage and identity. Beyond its artistic triumphs, the film sent an unmistakable message to Hollywood. Representation matters, not just as a concept, but as a force strong enough to change the world. Its success proved that authentic stories rooted in diversity could resonate everywhere. At the core of this authenticity stood Chadwick Boseman. His dedication to honoring African culture shaped the heart of the film. One of the most defining choices he made was insisting that T'Challa speak with an African accent. To Chadwick, this wasn't a minor detail. It was a matter of integrity. Giving the King of Wakanda an American or British accent, he argued, would erase the character's cultural foundation. Marvel hesitated at first. Executives worried an African accent might distance some audiences, but Chadwick stayed firm. He knew the weight of this role and refused to compromise the cultural identity he believed was essential. His insistence ultimately became a cornerstone of the character. His devotion didn't stop at the accent. Chadwick immersed himself in the world of Wakanda, studying traditions, collaborating with costume designers, discussing rituals, and exploring the cultural influences that shaped the nation's identity. His commitment added layers of depth that audiences around the world instantly felt. T'Challa wasn't just a hero, he was a symbol. Whether portraying real historical figures like Jackie Robinson or fictional legends like T'Challa, Chadwick's mission was always the same: truth and representation. He used his art to break stereotypes, uplift culture, and give voice to stories that had long been overlooked. Black Panther wasn't just another blockbuster, it became a movement. Chadwick's portrayal of T'Challa inspired millions, offering a superhero who reflected their experiences, their pride, and their dreams. His work transformed the MCU and created a legacy that continues to influence cinema today. He proved that superheroes can be more than entertainment. They can be catalysts for change. Chadwick Boseman's impact as T'Challa endures, a powerful reminder of his vision, his artistry, and his commitment to using storytelling as a force for empowerment. Even as his fame reached global heights, Chadwick remained grounded, private, and deeply anchored to his values. Celebrity status never changed who he was. He continued to live with humility, integrity, and a focus on serving others. While the world celebrated the Black Panther, Chadwick kept his personal life away from the public eye. One of the most important relationships in his life was with Taylor Simone Ledward. Their love, built quietly and privately, remained outside the cameras for years. In 2019, they married in a small, intimate ceremony, a choice that reflected Chadwick's belief that some moments should remain sacred. Their relationship became one of his greatest sources of strength during his illness, and just as his heart was devoted to her, it was equally committed to giving back. Philanthropy was woven into who he was. Education and healthcare were causes especially close to him. Growing up in Anderson, South Carolina, Chadwick understood the struggles many young African Americans faced. struggles tied to limited opportunities and systemic challenges. Because of that, he worked tirelessly to make a difference, establishing scholarships, donating quietly to families in need, supporting schools and hospitals, and mentoring young creatives. His generosity wasn't about headlines, it was about creating real, lasting impact. Chadwick never forgot the mentors, teachers, and loved ones who lifted him up, and he devoted himself to paying that kindness forward. His contributions went far beyond acting. His quiet acts of service, the help he gave without seeking credit, and his commitment to building others up became defining parts of his legacy. Even after his passing, these efforts continue to inspire. Chadwick Boseman will forever be remembered not only for the characters he brought to life, but for the life he lived, a life marked by grace, purpose, and a desire to uplift humanity. In 2016, Chadwick received news that would shake anyone to their core: stage 3 colon cancer. But instead of collapsing under the weight of the diagnosis, he chose a path of incredible strength. As one reporter later said, the actor died after a 4-year very private battle with colon cancer, and he was just 43 years old. Chadwick told only his closest family members. Even co-stars, directors, and producers he worked with daily had no idea what he was enduring. Behind every smile, every performance, every interview, he was fighting a silent war. Despite chemotherapy sessions and major surgeries, he refused to let his illness overshadow his work. Roles like T'Challa required intense physical training, demanding stunts, and unrelenting discipline. But Chadwick never asked for accommodations. He never let anyone see his pain. He approached each film with the same dedication he had shown since the beginning of his career. His choice to keep his illness private wasn't about hiding, it was about staying focused. He wanted his work to speak for itself. He didn't want pity, special treatment, or shifted expectations. He wanted to give the world everything he had left, without distraction. He chose to pour every remaining ounce of his strength into his legacy, into the impact he could leave behind in the limited time he had. And between 2016 and his passing in 2020, Chadwick Boseman delivered some of the most unforgettable performances of his career. Marshall, Da 5 Bloods, and Ma Rainey's Black Bottom showcased an artist at the height of his power. His colleagues watched him work with awe, never imagining the unbearable pain he carried silently behind the scenes. When the news of his illness, and then his passing, broke in August 2020, the world was left reeling. Shock turned into admiration as people realized the magnitude of his quiet personal battle. His fight with cancer became a symbol of extraordinary courage, unwavering strength, and profound selflessness. Among the many voices honoring Chadwick's life, one tribute stood apart, the one delivered by Denzel Washington, a mentor, a supporter, and someone who had quietly played a pivotal role in Chadwick's career. Reflecting on Chadwick's final years, Denzel spoke not only of his talent, but of his unmatched bravery. He lived a full life, Washington said softly. He did a lot of things, but he didn't let anyone know how much he was going through. Those words peeled back the curtain on a truth few had understood. Despite his worsening condition, Chadwick never allowed his illness to overshadow his craft. He remained the consummate professional, delivering powerful, layered performances with serenity and grace, even as he fought a battle most people could not fathom. One of the most profound acts of kindness he carried out during his illness was his repeated visits to St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. While undergoing treatment himself, Chadwick made time to visit children who were fighting the same enemy. These visits were never designed for cameras or attention. They came from a place of deep compassion. To the children at St. Jude, Chadwick wasn't just a celebrity, he was a source of light, encouragement, and strength. Denzel highlighted these moments as proof of Chadwick's incredible resolve. Even in the midst of his own suffering, he still reached outward, offering hope to others. For many, Chadwick's greatest role was not one on screen, but the one he lived privately, that of a man who refused to let cancer define him, choosing instead to inspire and uplift until the very end. When Denzel Washington spoke openly about Chadwick's final days, the moment was nothing short of breathtaking. He did all he could do with what he was given, and he left it here for us to enjoy. Chad will live forever. Those words, rich with emotion, revealed a truth that had remained hidden from the world for years. For once, Washington, always steady, always composed, allowed the weight of his emotions to show. His voice trembled, carrying a depth of love and respect that made the revelation all the more powerful. This wasn't just a tribute to an extraordinary actor. It was a glimpse into the heart of a man Washington considered family. Denzel didn't simply speak about Chadwick the performer. He honored Chadwick the human being, a man who faced an irreversible illness with a grace that defied understanding. He described how, even as cancer carved relentlessly into his body, Chadwick still gave everything he had to every scene, every role, every moment on set. He never let discomfort dim his performance. He never allowed pain to break his spirit. His colleagues never saw the struggle. They only saw greatness. As Washington spoke, the world began to grasp the true magnitude of Chadwick's strength. People had celebrated him as a brilliant actor, but now they understood the superhuman effort it took for him to keep going. The revelation that he had been battling stage 4 colon cancer while delivering some of the most physically demanding roles of his life left audiences stunned. It wasn't merely that Chadwick kept working, it was the ferocity, the nobility, and the sheer force of will with which he approached his craft. His performances gained a new layer of meaning. Characters like T'Challa or James Brown suddenly felt even larger, because Chadwick wasn't just portraying their courage, he was channeling his own. Denzel's revelation made something crystal clear. Chadwick Boseman's greatest role wasn't in a film. His most powerful performance was the way he lived, refusing to surrender, refusing to complain, refusing to allow illness to silence his purpose. His bravery wasn't just admirable, it was life-changing. Chadwick's decision to keep his illness private was not about hiding from the world, it was about maintaining control over his narrative. He wanted the world to remember his work, not his suffering. He wanted to be defined by his art, not his diagnosis. Denzel's tribute became more than a farewell, it was a plea to recognize the extraordinary courage behind that choice. Chadwick turned his battle into a victory. He gave the world everything he had, right up until the last breath, and in doing so, he built a legacy of resilience that will inspire generations to come. His impact, however, extends far beyond his iconic roles. Chadwick's legacy is woven into the cultural shift he helped create. His portrayal of T'Challa in Black Panther didn't just entertain audiences, it empowered them. His performance reshaped Black representation, showing millions that their stories deserved the world stage. But his influence wasn't limited to Hollywood. His passion for education and philanthropy continues to ripple outward. After his passing, scholarships and grants were established in his name. A reflection of his lifelong dedication to uplifting others, Chadwick understood the transformative power of opportunity because he had lived it. Denzel Washington's support had allowed him to attend the Oxford acting program, and Chadwick spent his life paying that kindness forward. His impact extends into culture, identity, and purpose. Chadwick Boseman became more than an actor. He became a symbol of perseverance, of integrity, of dignity in the face of impossible odds. His work in Black Panther shattered stereotypes, opened doors, and changed Hollywood forever. Through his films, his philanthropy, and his extraordinary courage, Chadwick left behind a legacy of greatness that will echo through the decades. Chadwick Boseman will be remembered not only as a remarkable actor, but as a true hero, a man whose life testified to the power of courage, purpose, and unyielding strength.